Hello everyone, my name is Mohammed Siddiqui and today in this video I will be talking about The Plague by Albert Camus, an intense and deeply philosophical novel first published in the year 1947. The story is set in an Algerian town of Oran. The story follows a deadly plague outbreak and how different people respond to it. But beyond the surface, it's really about how we deal with suffering, isolation, and the absurdity of life. Camus, known for his work in existentialism and absurdism, uses this novel to ask tough questions. What does it mean to be good? Can we find meaning in a chaotic life? So let's begin. So let's begin with the broad summary of the novel. So the plague takes place in the 1947 in the Algerian port city of Oran. The story begins with an ordinary day, routine and uneventful until the townspeople start noticing dead rats appearing all over the city. At first the authorities dismissed it, but soon people began dying after a uh, soon the people began dying of a mysterious illness. Dr. Bernard, one of the first to recognize the threat, pushes for swift action. Eventually, the disease is identified as the bubonic plague. The city is sealed off, and the people of Oran are forced into an extended and uh, agonizing quarantine. As the plague spreads, the novel shifts its focus to the emotional and moral responses of its characters. Dr. Rieux continues his work timelessly committed to treating the sick despite the overwhelming odds. Jean Thoreau, a philosophical outsider, became one of the city's most active volunteers, organizing sanitation squads. Meanwhile, Raymond Rambert, a journalist, tries everything to escape the city and reunite with his wife, but he ultimately chooses to stay and help, realizing that solidarity matters more than personal happiness. Father Penelux, a Jewish priest, a Jewish priest, delivered sermons interpreting the plague as divine punishment. But after witnessing the slow death of a child, his faith wavers. He dies lately, possibly one of the plague himself. His death left ambiguous. The clerk Joseph Grant, a minor civil servant with little heroic presence, quite quite persist in writing and volunteering, symbolizing the everyday resilience of ordinary people. As time passes, the city descends into a collective grief, fear, and numbness. After several months, the plague gradually disappears, first mysteriously, and then altogether. The city gates reopen and life resumes. But many have died and much have changed. In the final chapter, Dr. Ryux reveals himself as the narrator. He explains that he sorry choose to tell this story to bear witness to the suffering and to honor those who fought silently against the plague, not as saints but simply as people doing their job in the face of absurdity and death. Now let's deep dive into the philosophical aspect of the story. The plague isn't just a story about disease, it's a powerful metaphor for the human conditions. Though the unfolding crisis in Oran, Camus explores his central philosophical ideas absurdism. Absurdism, as Camus defined, is the conflict between our human desires for meaning, order, and clarity, and the silent, indifferent universe that offers none. The plague in the novel is an absurd force, random, irrational, and devastating. It strikes without reason, and people must live with the consequences, regardless of whether they deserve it or not. In the face of this absurdity, Camus shows us different responses. Some people gave up, some try to escape, some rationalize it as a divine punishment, but others, like Dr. Rukes and Rao, chooses resistance. They know they cannot defeat the plague entirely, but they fight it anyway. Not because they believe they will win, but because they have a right to do so. This is where existentialism and humanist values come in. Camus isn't suggesting to surrender ourselves. Instead, he offers a quiet form of heroism, choosing to care, to act, and to be kind even when the world is indifferent. As Ryuk says, the only way to fight the plague is with honesty and decency. The novel also explores solidarity and collective responsibility. Rambert initially wanted to escape his lover, but later joined the fight against the plague, realizing that truly be free no one can truly be free while others suffer. Tarao too believes that fighting for justice means refusing to let others die needlessly, even if it seems futile. There's also a spiritual conflict between Father. He starts by preaching that the plague is God's punishment, but when he watches a child die slowly and painfully, he begins to question that belief. Camus challenges traditional religious interpretations of suffering, suggesting that sometimes there is no higher pain. What matters is how we choose to act in the force of suffering. Ultimately, The Plague is a novel about moral courage. It's not about grand gestures, but about ordinary people doing their best in impossible situations. Camus believed that meaning isn't given to us, we create it through our actions. So, when Dr. Ryux continues to treat patients daily after day, he asserting a human centered response to absurdity. And when the plague finally ends, Ryux warns us that the disease can return. This isn't just about eternal plagues, it's also about the return of a evil, cruelty, and meaningless in society. Our task, Camus seems to say, is to stay alert and continue choosing compassion no matter how painful it may seem. Now let's go through the main characters of the novel one by one. Uh, we will see how Camus target different types of people through his novel. So first we have Dr. Bernard Ruiz, the narrator, represent rationalism. He doesn't rely on religion or ideology, just a quiet commitment to duty. Though the Doctor Camus champions the idea that heroism lies in compassion and persistence, even when success is uncertain. The Doctor shows that one doesn't need faith in God or grand ideas to act morally. Jean Thoreau is more philosophical, almost like Camus. Mm, he reflects on the plague as a metaphor for the moral failings within all of us. Our complicity is harm, even if unintentional. His struggle is with inner guilt, and his activism is his way of finding peace to arouse death. Despite his efforts, remind us that life offers no guarantees, but our action still matter. Raymond Rambert symbolizes the conflict between personal happiness and moral responsibility. He starts by trying to flee to his lover but stays to help fight the plague. His transformation shows Camus' belief that true freedom involves solidarity, that personal desires must sometimes yield to collective duty. Father reflects the struggle of faith. He initially interprets the plague as a divine punishment, but after witnessing the innocent suffer, he is shaken. His arc shows how blind faith can crumble when confronted with meaningless sufferings. Camus critiques religious explanations of evil, but not without empathy. Joseph Grant is the quiet everyman, awkward, anxious, and obsessed with writing a perfect sentence, yet he volunteers daily to help. Camus used Grant to highlight that heroism can be humble and unremarkable. It's the ordinary people who sustain the fight, not just the philosophers or doctors. Cotard, on the other hand, shows opportunism. He thrives during the plague, feels less alone in the suffering world, but when the plague ends, he collapses, revealing how false security built on others' pain ultimately fails. Yeah, so let's talk about the symbolism of the major events that take place in the novel. The appearance of red rats, red rats, red rats, symbolizes the underlying rots in society, things people ignore until they are forced to face them. The rats dying in the open is a disruption of the routine, a signal that something is wrong beneath the surface of a normal life. It's the beginning of awakening, not just to illness, but to moral and spiritual decay. The quarantine of Oran, when the city gates close, is not just a public health decision, it symbolizes existentialism. It symbolizes uh, existential isolation. People are separated from loved ones, but also from meaning, control, and routine. Camus uses this to express how humans are often trapped in a universe that is silent to their suffering, uh, echoing the absurd condition. The death of the child, one of the most emotionally wrenching scenes and deeply symbolic, the innocence of the child being subjected to prolonged agony challenges all confronting narratives, especially religious ones. This event is a direct philosophical confrontations between sufferings and meaning. It shakes father's faith and symbolizes the brutal truth that suffering is often random and undeserved. It sometimes depends on the fate. Rambert's decision to stay. Rambert's choice to stop trying to escape and instead join the doctors carry heavy symbolism weight. It's about choosing solidarity over self-interest. I have also talked about it before, so let's skip the part. So, quarters thriving during the plague symbolizes the way some individuals flourish in chaos. Quartered feels more comfortable when everyone is suffering, but no longer stand out. But when uh, the things became too normal, he crumbles. This highlights how certain mindsets are only sustained in dysfunction, and how crisis can mask personal instability. The end of the plague and return to normal. It might seem hopeful, but Camus tempers it with uh, Ryuk's reflection. The plague never dies, it only sleeps. The end of the plague isn't a neat resolution, it's a reminder that evil and absurdity are always waiting to return, and that human vigilance, compassion, and moral action must be continuous. So yeah, I recommend you all to at least have one reading of this novel, because reading the novel felt eerily familiar, especially in the wake of the COVID 19 pandemic. Camus wrote this decades ago, yet the way people in Oran responded, initial denial, panic, isolation, then quiet endurance, mirrored with what the entire world went through recently. What struck me most is how Camus doesn't offer easy questions, easy answers. He doesn't promise that good will always win or what suffering makes sense. Such very similar to reality, but he does shows how. But what we choose to do during a crisis defines us. It's not about being heroic, it's about doing small things, caring for others, choosing empathy over indifference, and staying committed even when it feels pointless. The core moral values of the novels are what I found. If you found something else, please do write it me in the comment section. So the first one is the human solidarity. In terms of crisis, standing together becomes more important than individual survival. The novel emphasizes that we are all interconnected and collective action is vital. The second one is the moral responsibility. Camus shows that doing the right thing, not for reward but because it's right, is a powerful form of resistance against chaos and sufferings. Uh, Next one is persistence in the face of absurdity. Even when life feels meaningless or unjust, characters like Dr. Ryux and Tarov keeps going. This reaches the value of resilience, even without hope of a perfect outcome. The next one, empathy and compassion. Uh, Quiet acts of care, listening, helping, choosing others over self are at the heart of the novel's moral world. Ordinary heroism. True strength lies not in the grand gestures but in daily, often unnoticed effort like Grant's routine helps or Rambert's decision to stay. Awareness and vigilance. The novel ends with a warning. Black, literal or moral, can return. We must stay conscious and responsible even when things doesn't seem fine. So I conclude the novel by reciting the most beautiful line of the novel, that goes like, what we learn in times of a plague is that there is more to admire in people than to despise. Yeah, thank you for this.